As we were saying off air, which we won't say on air now, welcome to Nation Domination.
It's good radio with the lack of sound.
Okay, there. All right, PZ. The 7 o'clock hour is done. YTV's over. This is the real stuff for HBO.
I want a white TV.
I'm PJ Phil.
Nice.
Hey, Phil Guerrero, man. Classic 90s. Anyway, speaking of 90s here, we are now...
For people over the age of 25 to get that reference.
Exactly, on YTV. It is now time to recap the week that was, or the weekdays that was, in this week's Div 4 action
Who
here.
are you and who is he?
I'm going to break it down right now here. For those who don't know who we are, GM Colathris, MoCon, and of course Eagle. You can tweet at us, GM Cole44, at MoCon19, and of course Eagle FPF. A lot to get to. We'll break down what happened on Saturday quickly. Then Tuesday, a wild night of action, a wild night of upsets. 2 1-seeds going down. We'll talk about which was more disappointing to see and who is more upset to lose at that point. GM, let's look quickly at Saturday's games here. A lot of games to look at quickly.
We'll just glance over each
Glance over it quickly. Your thoughts. What caught your eye in terms of the outcome?
The one that really caught my eye, I don't know if it was Benoit Lawler's absence completely, if he was hurt or if he couldn't play, but just seeing 6 Fast Guys plus Ryan just run away with the game against Team Ethnic. Team Ethnic not with their starting quarterback and struggling as a whole. Backyard Bullies beating Malud really surprised me as well. Great game. Aside from that, 2.5 Dans over Shamrocks. I feel like we talked about there was a lot of potential for that upset and it ended up happening. 69ers over Cream Team in a close battle. Recipe for Disaster over Shmoney, 27-26. The pressure of Ryan Aridi, as we'll see, is formidable. Game Changers lost to Marco in the middle. The experience of Marco in the middle, something we touched on as well. Grip and Rip over Dragons. And Coyotes very soundly beat the Ghosts.
Well, just quickly look at this. Game Changers lost in the last play. Not much you can do about it. With Gordon Hogan scoring the game-winning touchdown, which is quite phenomenal, going back and forth. I told Rod Capan off air, during the weekend, I said, "This is
off air, to be fair."
Yeah, true. Next rhyme. It's the year of the rusher, pass rusher, that is. Ryan Aridi had a phenomenal game on the weekend. Dylan Drake of the 69ers had a phenomenal game as well. I find that the pass rushing now has been a lot more effective in the last half of the season, and it was pretty evident on Saturday. And for 6 Fast Guys, they were down at one point. But unfortunately for Team Ethnic, missed tackles, and blown coverages cost them points, and Ethnic loses and the 6 Fast Guys move on. Tuesday, though, was where the fireworks happened here, GM. Let's dive into that action, of course. As we saw, 2 number 1 seeds get bounced. We'll go to the first game here. A Recipe for Disasters against 6 Fast Guys. R4D wins 39-32 on a Kevin Boustany game-winning TD on the second to last play.
Boost.
That is the classic line from David Della Rocca. How surprised are you, given that 6 Fast Guys rolled through the competition and came up against a very good R4D?
I don't know if this was the case of them not taking Recipe for Disaster as seriously the way that we've touched upon that they're skilled, but we've always said that either it's the size matchups or we've been giving excuse after excuse after excuse as to why Recipe for Disaster shouldn't do well, and they're consistently doing well. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that there was the rivalry between the Aridis and the Vienne brothers having played together and now being on opposite sides of the field. But whatever it is, Fred Vienne had, despite the fact that he still had close to as many completions as he normally has, but close isn't enough when you have, as you said, a rusher like Ryan Aridi coming every play at you and you have to dump the ball off quickly. Being a former pass rusher as well, you being a former pass rusher, we understand the importance of it. Eagle as well, we understand the importance of it and how good we will never be compared to these guys.
Well, when you look at, you got Fred Vienne's pass completion ratio 23 for 28. Okay, great, but this was an impressive 23 for 28. Ryan really got into his head early and often, and you saw him rush a lot of throws, looking for the check down mark. I mean, he found his brother Marc-Antoine Vienne 9 times, I believe, or close enough to 8-9 times here. But you mentioned about rivalries, right? One matchup that really caught my attention was Anthony Garand against Kevin Boustany on both offense and defense. Went back and forth, and Boustany, without even saying a word to him, got into his head. And I thought they did a really good job in really getting to their heads.
I think that's testament to Boustany's play, that he's a very, very effective player and doesn't need to resort to the chirp, because just the effectiveness of his play is enough to really get under your skin and really be formidable.
So what does this do for Fred Vian's legacy? I mean, he's been dominant the last couple of years. However, comes up short this time around.
He has a championship.
But that's spring, though. Winter's always considered to be the ultimate championship because it's the best on best.
Agreed, but I don't think that taints his legacy in the slightest. He still comes out with quarterback of the year, all-star player, very, very strong, and I think that's something to build on.
Next game, backyard Bullies 2.5 Dans. Bullies win 38-30. Rich Humes, 23 for 26, 6 TDs. Joy Taylor, 5 Ts, a critical 2 INTs. In your mind, was the Bullies the right mix of stopping this frenetic offense that Joy Taylor runs? Because you look at the Bullies' defense; they can get physical with you. They're
very
disruptive, high football IQ, and it seemed like they got into their heads as well and really got physical with the receivers.
This also does come down to as well. You normally, when you see the 2.5 Dans play their brand of football, they tend to take as much time as possible on offense. And the same thing went for the Bullies in this game. The Bullies came into this game. They really managed the clock really well. They managed the ball really well. They marched up and gave 2.5 the Dans less time than they're used to offensively.
Bullies, would you agree they have a bend but don't break defense? I mean, it seems to me, and they came up. We talked about this all the year long, GM, that their defense would always carry them and play well. And I thought they came up huge, even though, and look, the scoreline, it is what it is. They gave a fluke Hail Mary touchdown off of 3 bobbled tip ball hands into the 2.5 Dans player hands, and that was it.
They had a solid defense to begin with, and the addition of Steve Sanner, not only calling the defense but having that experience, is paying dividends for this team right now. And you're seeing it both offensively as he finished with two touchdowns, Daniel O'Connor with 3 as well, but just the impact that he has on the defensive side of the ball as well, just taking away those reads completely.
Mr. 90210, Steve Sanner, that is. So where did the 2.5 Dans go?
If you get that reference, you probably have a bad back and responsibilities right now.
Exactly. Where did the 2.5 Dans go from here? Do you think they need to add more depth? They're usually 6-7 guys.
I think
keep with what they have.
I think they keep with what they have because it's worked for them this far. They made it deep into the playoffs in a 40-team division. They consistently do well. They've made finals before as a team. I don't think that a lot of it really needs to change.
According to Eagle, Dan McPhee needs to pump his team with protein from his place.
Fresh MTL.
Fresh MTL.
Fresh MTL, that's correct. Terry Tam, who's warming up in the sidelines, getting ready for You'll Never Walk Alone. GNR, Mark in the middle. GNR wins 25-6, a very boring game. Anthony DeSilva, 2 TD catches. I'll ask this question, GM. We talk about, passing quarterbacks, how dominant they are in FPF. Could we start mentioning Vinny Galano as being a serious dual threat quarterback because he's very good at passing and running the football? Pardon me.
I think you meant dual threat in the sense that he's a great defender as well.
Well, we can go triple threat, but
he's also a good receiver. So what does that make him?
Quadruple threat.
There we go.
Yes, but as a quarterback, though, I mean, he's won it with his ability to run and throw the football.
Having played against this team firsthand, they're very deceptive, despite the fact that they're only 6, possibly 7 guys, depending on who comes out at once. But they have a lot of really deceptively talented guys. Anthony DeSilva, strong player on both sides of the ball, someone you wouldn't normally look twice at, even though he's the center who gets a lot of the reads. Matt DeSilva as well did a fantastic job of covering Liam Mahoney when Chris played grip and rip. So that just tells you the testament of the speed and skill he has and just how well the ball is distributed amongst this team.
An emotional letdown in your mind for Mark in the middle, winning the last play against Game Changers and come out very flat. And they looked very flat out there, trying to force throws. Matt Bashar never got in sync. Gordon Hogan went at quarterback for a play through INT. It just seemed like physically they were there, but mentally they were not.
I think Rip, just plain and simple, were ready for them. They knew what Marco in the middle brought to the table and took it away.
You can see that Grip and Rip gripped them and ripped them apart. Okay, all right. Next question. Marco in the middle, where do they go from here? This is a team that's been consistent in FPF in terms of the composition of the roster. Need to add, subtract. What do they do next?
If I had to make a prediction,
yes,
I think they're going to need to add a little bit of height, some more familiarity. Someone say like Eddie Latin Hustle Martinez to the team
Never heard of
for
him.
the spring. There you go. Eagles trending hashtag bring back Dirty Birds.
Oh, maybe
That would be interesting.
Maybe Coach Birds might have to come back.
Oh, Joe Birds.
He's right now at ESPN on the college football.
I met
coverage.
Joe Birds at the finals too. I have a photo with him.
Oh, there you go. I remember that. Okay, next game. Coyotes Niners, probably the best game out of the 4 on Tuesday. Niners win literally in the last 5 plays. They were down at one point 22-13, in which the Coyotes were controlling the football game. Seemed like they're going on the way to a W here. Coyotes, was this a matter of them not closing out and resembling the actual Atlanta Falcons in real life?
I'm not sure because I feel like the Coyotes have deceptively more depth than the Falcons. With that in mind. If there's a big Green Bay
Which
fan.
one, Sam or Josh?
Sam.
Sam, big Green Bay fan, and okay, fair enough. Carry on.
Oh, it's like the Seattle game, the road to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Which made me so happy, by the way.
Carry on, though.
John Ryan with that excellent halfback play on the fake. We digress. We see, firstly, Dean Demetriou, 4 attempts, 4 completions for 2 touchdowns. We see that when brought in, if necessary, he's very, very effective at quarterback, and 69ers always have that to fall back upon. Not only that, but just the rush of Drake, keeping Sammy Feeder in the pocket, really limiting his options. He stepped up huge, and it's not a matchup you would think that Dylan Drake would win. If just looking at the two guys, and especially how shifty Sammy Feeder was, but it was enough to disrupt him off his game.
Well, it's funny enough. There was one play, an extra point attempt, where Sammy Feeder literally ran to his 10-yard line and bypassed 2 Niner pass rushers and made a 2-point convert. Took 20 seconds off the clock. Incredible stuff here. You talk about Dean Demetriou. How lucky are the Niners having this player playing both ways?
Former Division 4 champion, very, very seasoned, both in the higher divisions, outdoors as well as indoors. He's big for this team. He's a motivator. He can help his team not lose sight because they're very, very tempted to do that. He can help them. He can help reel them back in, and he has the ability to take the reins when need be.
Okay, the Coyotes don't play in the spring season. They haven't done it so far in their inception of that PF here. How do they rebound from this going into next year?
They're just going to have to come back into Division 4 and be more effective.
All right, so the question is, though, 6 fast guys, Coyotes both 1 seeds. The more disappointing ending is for who in your mind?
With that, it has to be 6 fast guys, considering how dominant they were throughout the series.
Fair enough, then. True men don't kill Coyotes.
What?
You don't get the reference?
No.
Chili peppers, true men don't kill coyotes.
No.
Sorry, I'm not really a big
Chili
chili pepper
peppers?
fan.
Oh, the red hot ones.
Oh, okay, fair enough then. Come up next here on Nation Domination, we will start previewing the Final Four. Find out which stat line about Jared is quite startling, which will make sense as I explain to you later on. We'll get GM's picks, my picks. Stay tuned to Nation Domination in lovely North Central downtown Eastern Laval with Eagle, GM, and Mocon. Stay tuned. Calling the Audible has been brought to you by the English Montreal School Board's DEAL program. Distance education for all learners will allow you to obtain your high school diploma or prerequisites for SageUp or vocational studies from the comfort of your own home. It's never too late to go back to school. Learn anywhere at your own pace and get your diploma. Call 514-788-5937 for information or visit www.distanted.ca for more details.
Yeah, you can tell.
You don't say. I couldn't tell.
It's like early shit.
It's really early. That's why. So good. Alright, come back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Nation Domination Podcast. Here
Apparently the mics were still on too.
Were they? Awesome. My mic wasn't on, though. Anyway, we're back on. GM, Mocon, and of course, Eagle here at lovely central downtown northeastern Laval. Eagle FPF, GM Cole 44, and at Mocon 19. Terry Tam tweeting at us, waiting for Div 4 to be done to get going here. Ryan Reedy, the mics are still on. We know. Thank you. Let us get back into the Final Four previews here. We'll go over all the teams, the matchups that we have here. Some key stats to look at here. The Niners have actually played R4D and, of course, GNR. Niners, R4D, 2 wildcard teams, even though R4D was the number 1 team in their division. Bullies, GNR, division winners, no number 1 seed remaining here. So that's quite remarkable to see. Not surprised, though, that there's no top 2
It does
seed.
actually happen fairly often in Division 4 specifically, due to the fact that the teams that have the bye weeks end up either being rusty or just the momentum of the lower seed teams.
So long, this division playoff process, man. 5 rounds, 5 games. If you're not 4.
It's interesting.
It is fascinating stuff here. Let's go into the first game we'll look at here. Niners against R4D. Met way back on week 1, in which the Niners won 40-38. Shea Harbor had 4 TDs. Applebaum, 5 TDs, 4 INTs. Twice this year he's passed for 4 INTs in the season. Dean Dimitri had 2 of those INTs in that victory. A key stat that I'll give you right now, Niners are 3-3 when games are decided by 7 points or less. Now, the question I have for you, though, is could Recipe for Disaster continue on their roller coaster of highs, or will they have an emotional letdown given that they beat Shmoney and 6 fast guys in the span of 4 days?
I think this momentum is huge for them. Just having that consistent rush on Shea Harbor is gonna be off-putting for him. We may see Dean Dimitri come into this game sooner rather than later, possibly have to take over. Recipe for Disaster have been riding on a high, and now it's gonna all come down to their offense to keep pace.
I think momentum will be key for Disaster because, again, you win Saturday, you win on a Tuesday. It's a short layover. You still have that momentum going through. In your mind, who do you like, though? The Niners deep ball, because they throw a really good deep ball, and that's their offense pretty much, or the ability of the Disaster to control the tempo, the pace with their offense?
I would, in this case, take the Recipe for Disaster ability to really keep pace. Slowing down the game is something that's huge when you see teams do it effectively. It frustrates the opposition. It kills time off the clock. It's just overall one of the most underrated things you can do in FPF, and it's led to a lot of championships in upper divisions.
All right, Ryan Reed suffered a lower body injury. He didn't even play his Div 2 game, or Div 1 game, pardon me, on Tuesday. So does this change the outlook for Recipe for Disaster if he's not healthy and cannot rush on Sunday?
It does. I would probably see, funnily enough, Jadaridi taking over at rusher. Is not someone who you normally think of when you think of rushers. However, he has been called upon to do it before and actually does it surprisingly well. So I think if there is an absence of Ryan Aridi, Jad will take over at rusher, but it will not be as effective because not only do you lose Ryan at rusher, you lose Jad at DB as well.
So does this put the spotlight now on the counterpart of the pass rushing department, and Dylan Drake, who, again, we spoke about him having a great playoff run? Mm-hmm. Is he the X factor in this matchup then?
I think so. It will all start with him because of the Recipe for Disaster team. If you look at, no pun intended considering their jerseys, but if you look at who's more green on the roster, it's got to be Jake Applebaum. So he has potential to either do really well or really poorly if disrupted, and Dylan Drake has that potential to really take over and do that.
Niners, we talk about them all year long. I mean, you guys crushed them earlier in the season. Why are they so inconsistent? I'll give you examples here. Against LDD, week 10 or week 11, pardon me, they lose. And then in playoffs, they struggle to beat them. Against Coyotes, they're down by 9 with less than 8 minutes left. They win with 5 plays left. Why are they so inconsistent given how much talent is on this roster?
I think it comes down to, for the 69ers, when it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. And aside from the Coyotes game where we really saw them for the first time think outside the box and adapt, they don't really do anything to change. When they're winning, it's great for them, but they get frustrated when they're not. And like I said, aside from the Coyotes game, they haven't really made significant changes to try and rectify that. So I think a key thing for Recipe for Disaster to do is to get up in points early on 69ers and see what happens when the 69ers start to trail.
So are we due to see a bad Jake Applebaum game? 7 games this year, he's thrown multiple INTs, which is quite high for a quarterback. And even though in the playoffs now, he didn't throw an INT last game against 6 fast guys. But do you sense, given how ball hawking like the Niners defense is, they can really capitalize on his throws?
Well, this ties into what I said about Dylan Drake disrupting him. He is one of the greenest players on Recipe for Disaster. And it may come down to that. It may come down to him really playing a little bit more sloppy if he's off his game, rushing throws, and that would be disastrous for Recipe for Disaster, considering how effective the 69ers are. However, with the counterparts that we have, just like Shea Harbor has Dean Demetriou, if need be, Kevin Bustani can be called in to quarterback for Jake Applebaum if he's really off his game and just frustrated.
Thank you very much, Eagle. One Niners player not named Dean Demetriou or Dylan Drake that has to step up this weekend.
It's the easy way out, but Shea Harbor. It will come down to the quarterback play. If you want to name other than that, we know how effective a center can be when a rusher is really putting pressure on you. So Michael Borghese, if Shea Harbor is really being frustrated by Ryan Aridi and needs that outlet, it's got to be Borghese to just have those short dump-off passes to force the Recipe for Disaster team to really start jumping that route.
This is not the stat line I'll give you by Jad Aridi, but Jad Aridi and Kevin Bustani have combined for 13 INTs. So how does Shea Harbor try to avoid these guys, or does he pick on one guy and say, this is my game plan going into this matchup?
That is an effective way to look at things, depending on the rosters, but I don't think it's necessarily gonna work against Recipe for Disaster because they will start to adjust. I think he's just gonna need to find not one specific person, but just the holes in the defense, either in the short zone, the deep ball, or the middle field, and exploit that rather than finding one player on the field to sort of bully.
Yes, no, first one to 30 wins.
No, first one to 40 wins.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you the stat line for Jad Aridi. In the last 7 games, he has 7 INTs. They're 5-0. So just put it out there. If he gets an INT, maybe they do win. Who knows? But it's pretty remarkable. 7 INTs.
You gave me a stat earlier that they're 3-3 when something happens. So
Niners.
So if they're 3-3 with 7 points or less, that stat is effectively null and void because it winds up being half the time.
Well, Jad Aridi, if he gets a pick,
that's more convincing.
That's pretty impressive. But nonetheless, though, Niners this year, 6 games, they're 3-3 when decided by 7 points or less. Next game on the docket, GNR against Backyard Bullies. No meeting between the two teams. A key playoff number, 25, the number of points GNR has scored in each of the playoff wins so far this season. 4-1 when Vinny Galano rushed for 40-plus yards in a game this year. Big Backyard Bullies, 4-1 when the defense holds opponents less than 20 points in a game. So pretty remarkable with that. I'll give you this question here. One word to describe the Backyard Bullies and GNR in terms of their concept and in terms of their...
collectively?
Or each. So 2 words, 1 word each.
Collectively works. I would say similar because these two teams are very similar. They're both smaller rosters. They both have a dual threat blonde-haired QB.
Are they from West Island, both of them?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
hey,
both
look
West
at that.
Island. There
Look
you
at that.
go.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fighting against the mirror in a sense. It's going to be a really, really interesting one to watch, whereas with 69ers Recipe for Disaster, you have two teams who are kind of a little bit more different. This is going to be a matchup that's very much the same.
Rich Humes, and for those who don't know, almost had a perfect game against 2.5 Dans. In fact, he was perfect up until the last drive where he threw 3 incompletions. In your mind, can he pull this off again? And not say he's going to have a perfect game, but has something like he did, 23 of 26, like against 2.5 Dans, against this GNR defense?
Once again?
Can he do it, yes or no?
Can he do it? It's going to be a toss-up right now. Against the GNR defense, Like I mentioned before, they have a lot of hidden talent on this team that really fly under the radar until called upon to do something. I mentioned the De Silvas. Another player who has gone quietly under the radar, and I don't know how, is Jordan Allard. Jordan's a very, very solid outdoor player, and even in Division 4, jumps passes, takes them back for 6, has great field awareness, has great football knowledge, is a dynamite receiver as well. So there isn't very much a weak link on the Grip and Rip team. So I think Rich Humes, unfortunately, has his work cut out for him in this matchup.
So on one leg, Daniel O'Connor had 3 TDs and 1 INT against 2.5 Dans. Should Gino's game plan have them say to themselves, let him beat us and we'll take everyone else out? On one leg,
the fact that he's on one leg, no, because Grip and Rip do well covering an entirely healthy team. So I don't think this should change in focusing on one person and leaving someone uncovered, injured or not. The fact that they can go man-to-man with most any team in the division, I don't think they need to deviate from their plan, because if they can excel one-on-one, they don't need to go 2-on-1 on someone and leave someone uncovered.
if you're the Bullies, do you worry about Vinny Galano, the passer, who during the year 7 times 65% passer completion rate, or the running quarterback? 5 times he had 40-plus yards.
I would worry about Vinny, the passer, every time, because if you start giving up the pass in order to protect the run, what Vinny's going to do is he's going to start moving off the line, come right up to the line of the scrimmage, and then air it out or dump it off until you give him that space. And then he's going to start running again. I think you need to protect both equally, but put more emphasis on taking away his passing rather than his running, because his running will sometimes be effective. His passing will always be effective. Give it to him.
Would you say the X factor is Mike Zanabi, the pass rusher, in a sense, for the fact that, again, when he has a sack, they're 5-1?
I don't think that's necessarily a stat that's going to be followed, considering that Backyard Bullies aren't a team that are heavily reliant on sacks. It's more about obstructing the receivers, really getting physical with them, and having errant passes forced.
Who will have a bigger game this weekend? Anthony De Silva, who has 5 TDs in the last 6 games, or Steve Sander, 12 TDs in the last 7 games?
I think of the two, it's going to be Sander. The center is very, very important for Vinny, but I think it's going to be more about his supporting cast of characters in this game. And on the other side of the ball, especially with O'Connor being hurt, Sander really is going to need to step up and do more for his team.
Backyard Bullies, look, there's no question they are banged up. I mean, physically. I mean, they took a beating against Malud and won that game. O'Connor's banged up. Could this be a factor if this is a physical, grind-em-out game on Sunday?
Without a doubt. Even if both teams were healthy, it's still going to be difficult for Bullies. The fact that they're behind the 8 ball right now, playing hurt, playing banged up, doesn't bode well for them.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Both teams don't really have big rosters anyway to work with in the first place.
That's what I said. They're both a mirror of each other.
West Island teams, I guess. Maybe they're connected to each other one way or another. 6 degrees of separation, you never know.
Should they carpool to the field?
Maybe.
Bus.
But hey, that's right. They have the bus lane, right? Going from the 20? Or even take the train, the AMT.
Uber.
Yeah, Uber might be banned in Montreal. We don't know. Maybe. If Mayor Coder gets his way. Who knows? Anyway, we broke it down. It's now time for our final 4 picks. We'll go with the first game here. Niners.
The famous smoke on spread?
Yes, of course. Niners disaster. 4.5 points for the Niners.
Nope.
And the thing is, and the reason why he's put 4.5 is because I don't know how healthy Ryan Reedy is.
Ryan, I know you're in front of your computer right now. Can you either tweet us or message us on whether or not you are healthy for this game? I will give you 30 seconds before I make my prediction.
If he's
I'm
healthy.
going to continue with this sentence, hoping that you're still listening. I'm not going to end it right now. Really hoping for some help right now.
Okay, well, how about we go to the
it
next
will
game, then?
influence my
Keep in mind,
decision.
there's also about a 10-second delay.
Which is why I said 30 seconds, because it'll give the lag 10 seconds and 20 seconds for him to do something.
So how about this? We'll go to the next game in the meantime.
Well, you said the spread was with
4.5 without Ryan Reedy. If he plays, I have it 2.5.
So you only lessen it by half of less than a touchdown?
2 points.
I think either way, I'm still tempted to side with Recipe for the Disaster on this one. They're a very solid team. They've been adapting. We haven't been giving them as much attention as we should. And provided Jake Applebaum can have a stellar game, they should be fine.
Fair enough.
Damn it,
And,
Ryan.
GNR. Oh, here you go.
Game
Ryan.
time decision.
So keep it at 4.5.
That's just his way of saying I'm playing, but I don't want to tell the other team that I'm playing.
There you go. GNR, backer bullies, 3.5 points for GNR.
I think GNR are going to take it and beat that spread.
Okay, fair enough. A reminder, we have our press conference next week to be determined, so follow us on the Facebook wall or on Twitter.
It's going to be same time as the show, 8 o'clock, on our Google Plus YouTube page. So basically youtube.com/FlagPlus. The details are still being worked out, but it's going to be cool.
Essentially, check the Facebook group.
wall, and we'll give you the details then. GM, what did you learn in today's episode?
I learned that our mics were still on during our break. However, we were watching Red Hot Chili Peppers videos, so it doesn't matter.
Eagle, I learned the mics became sentient. Okay. Sentient. Terry, what did you learn
It's
today?
sentient, though. Sentient?
Yeah.
I learned you forever collision.
I'm not the other guy, Peasy. I learned that Terry's very anxious to get on air with You'll Never Walk Alone. Div 5 come up next. Don't forget, we'll have our press conference next week. Road to Broussard next Saturday in lovely Broussard. What's the time of the game? 6 o'clock? 6.
No, it's got to be earlier. Oh, Div 4?
Div 4 finals, 6
Makes sense.
o'clock, right? We'll say 6:10 would be. 6:10. Nothing goes on time in road shows. Maybe not. A couple of overtimes. All right. Without further ado, good night, South Korea.